Hey guys, it's Davin here at brewbits.com. Behind the camera we got James. Say hello, James. This evening then I thought we would brew up an apple cider. Now, being from the home of Scrumpy Cider here in Somerset, I thought we would brew up a New Zealand cider. So Mangrove Jacks is a New Zealand company, and this is kind of designed in New Zealand, although it is actually made here in the UK. So I thought we would give it a go and see how it comes out. But what are you going to need? Well, you're also going to need a kilogram of brewing sugar and a few bits of equipment. So we're going to need our fermenting buckets, we're going to need a spoon, a thermometer, a hydrometer for testing if all the sugar's been eaten, some sterilizer, and then this little thing is the trial jar which goes with the hydrometer, and then something once it's finished fermenting to put it into. And I like to split my brews out 50-50, 50% into a pressure barrel and 50% into bottles, and here I'll be using some glass with the top bottles. So once we've got all of that ready, I'm going to get sterilising and then we're going to get brewing. So come on in, James, and have a quick look at this, because this tells you a little bit about the pouch that we're just about to open. Right, back to me then, because this pouch is actually in two parts. So we're going to cut it as close to this line as possible. And then once we've opened it up, you'll see, James, inside there are two pouches. One with lots of apple concentrate, and then this side we've got some other bits and bobs. Now back to me, James, so we can get a bit better view. So we've got our instructions, a sheet of instructions. We've got some sweetener. We've got some apple cider flavouring, okay, and we've also got some Mangrove Jack cider yeast. So the first thing we're going to need to do, according to our instructions, is pour our liquid concentrated apple juice into our sterilised bucket. We need 3 litres of boiling water, so I'm going to put on the kettle. Whilst the kettle's coming to the boil, we're going to open our sugar. Ooh, that was close. And gently pour this in. So back to me, James. Because this sugar is slightly different to the sugar you find in the supermarket. This is called dextrose, whereas the sugar you get in the supermarket is fructose and glucose. Now, supermarket sugar will add a sweetness to the finished cider. If you want it to be a bit more authentic, you'd use brewing sugar, and that gives you a more drier flavour, and which is why I think they've added the flavourings and the sweetener sachets to go in it a bit later. Look at that. The kettle's up to boil, so I'm going to pour out a litre. Now, I still haven't fixed this kettle. It's a very dribbly kettle. And it's so steamy I can't see where my litre mark is. There we go. Right, so that's my first litre. But instead of pouring it into my fermenting bucket with the liquid, with the apple juice concentrate, I'm going to pour a little bit into our pouch, because there was still quite a bit of apple juice concentrate in here. It's a little bit thick to get it out nice and easy. So I'm just going to make sure that we get all that apple juice concentrate that we possibly can. There we go. Oh, the smell. Great. See, empty packet now. Sweet. I need to put my kettle on because I need another 2 litres. Luckily, there's not enough dribbles to stop it from being 3 litres. So in that goes, and we need to now mix our sugar and our concentrated apple juice. Get it all dissolved. All the sugar's been dissolved, so I've brought my bucket up to the top here, and luckily my tap's got a long hose, and I'm now going to fill the bucket up to 23 litres, so it's about the 5 gallon mark with cold tap water. And now I'm giving it a good stir to make sure it's all the tap water and the boiling water and all the apple juice and sugar all mixed together. And now I need to take a temperature reading with a thermometer. Just make sure it's coming out the right temperature range. It is, it's coming out just shy of 20, so we know it's ready to move on to our next steps. Now, the next step says that we need to add the sweetener sachet. And according to the instructions, you can add as much or as little as you want to taste, but they give you some guidance. They say add the whole packet if you want a sweet cider, add half the packet if you kind of want it off dry, so I presume it's medium. So let's have a little taste, shall we? It's a little tiny bit. I wonder how sweet this is. Oh, that's sweet. Oh my God. Right. Okay. Now I don't like my cider sweet, so I reckon this is probably, do you reckon about 2 teaspoons in there? If I did that, that's about 2 teaspoons. So if I add a teaspoon, I reckon that's about half. Oh, that was sweet. Now I'm going to stir this in. I'll keep the rest for later as well, for after the fermentation's finished. Because if it's not quite sweet enough, we can always add a bit more sweetener to it. Lovely. And then the next thing we need to add is our yeast. And here we've got a Mangrove Jack's cider yeast. There's it, 20 degrees, so it's ready to add it. And all we're going to do is sprinkle this on the top. But before I sprinkle it on the top, there's one thing I forgot to do. I've forgotten to take a hydrometer reading. So I'm going to take a hydrometer reading. So let me go get my hydrometer and my trial jar. So now I've taken a sample in my trial jar, and with the hydrometer it's coming out at 1.048. So we'll make a note of that, so when it finishes fermenting, we'll know what our alcohol content's going to be. And now, eventually, for our packet of yeast. In it goes, just sprinkle it on the top. Ooh, this is sinking very, very fast. And then give it a gentle stir in. Okay. Simple as that. Now my lid goes on. I leave a corner of it off just over here. And this now goes into my warm cupboard at 20 degrees, ideally 18 to 22 degrees, anywhere within that range, for 5 days. For you guys, it's just been a couple of moments. For me, I've had to wait a whole week to get to this stage. So it's been brewing in my cupboard for a week, and now it's time to take hydrometer readings. So I've taken a sample in my trial jar, and it's coming out on the hydrometer at 1.002. So in the instructions, it says to refer to a table on the Mangrove Jack's website, and there's a QR code and a link to take you there. And then it gives you what the SG should be at this stage for the cider, or any of the beers actually, before you move on to the next stage. And so this is now at the right stage to move on. So going back a little bit though, if you remember right at the beginning, we had to put in the sweetener sachet. And so I thought, whilst I've got the hydrometer here and I've got a few mil in, I thought I would take basically a taster and see if it is sweet enough for me. It's quite scrumpy, I'll give you that. It's quite happily, quite scrumpy. I'm going to say that's probably about as sweet as I would like it to be. I think if I'd added the rest of this little sachet, yeah, I think that would be way, way, way too sweet for me. So I'm glad I didn't add it all. So I would, again, if we got to this stage and you decided you like it a bit sweeter, then add a bit more. But remember, once you've added it, you can't take it away. So if you end up with a really sweet cider and you don't like really sweet cider, because that's medium sweet, I would say, as it is now. We only added a half of this in. So anyway, right. Okay. The next stage of our instructions says to add the apple cider flavouring pouch and then stir it all around. Then you've got to wait 24 hours for it to all settle down again. I don't see the point in that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sterilised bucket and my siphon, and I am going to siphon the cider from this bucket into this one. Come in and have a look at this, James, because the cider is already starting to clear. You could see that in my glass. It's really, really clear. So, as I said, it's already really clear, so I don't want to disturb the sediment in the bottom of the bucket. So, in the siphon goes. Good suck. And get the flow going. Now, I've made sure that I've turned my tap off because my bucket's got a tap. And it's, as I say, it's going to take a little bit of time to get this siphon down in. Now, I know some people always say to me about this when I'm using a simple siphon and I give a suck on the end of the simple siphon. Oh, that's going to transfer germs into it. Trust me, the only germs that were in there have already been killed by the alcohol that's already within here. But if you don't want to do it that way, then we also sell what's called an auto siphon, and that's got a pumping action and gets the flow going without your lips having to come anywhere near it whatsoever. Right, it's going to take me a little bit of time to siphon this off, so I'm going to see you in a moment. Cool, come on in, James, because we're getting a little bit lower. In from the top, you'll see that we're getting a little bit lower, and it's going to get a little bit more difficult. Back to me, James. As we get lower and lower, it's going to be more and more difficult to get everything out. So, if you really gently tilt your bucket, get something that's going to steady it, pop that underneath. And now it's going to be a lot easier to get a lot more cider out without disturbing any of that sediment in the bottom. As you get a little bit lower, you can start to see all the yeast down in the bottom. And you can start seeing it through, and it gradually gets quicker and quicker and quicker. And keep your eye on it, because it will catch up on you. And you're going to try and get most of this cider in with as little of the sediment as possible. And you might have to tilt the bucket a little bit more. And I think we're almost there. Wait. Oh, look at that. Now that we've siphoned into this bucket here, we can add flavourings, we can add other sugars to it without having to worry really about disturbing the sediment at the bottom. So, the next thing we need to add is our apple cider flavouring. And I'm going to do a little bit like I did with the sweetener sachet. I'm going to put it into a receptacle first. So I've got a little shot glass here. It's quite a thick liquid. You can smell the appleness from here. Oh my goodness. That's really strong. That is overpowering, overpowering apple flavour. Am I going to dare trying a bit? Yeah, okay, so a little tiny bit on the end. That is so strong. Okay. That is extremely strong apple flavour. So, like I did, wow. Like I did with the sweetener, I'm going to add this a little bit at a time. And I'm going to probably put in 1, 2, 3 teaspoons of that for now. I've got a sterilised spoon. I'm going to stir it. So there's a sweetness to that. There's an appliness to it. There's also a bitter kind of dryness to it. There's a lot of flavour. It's almost edging on being chemically, so this is why I'm being a little bit cautious of how much we're adding. So, let me, I've got another glass here. Right, this is another good reason for using this. I've got glasses everywhere. I'm pulling that off because there would have been a little bit in there that I couldn't have got to. Okay. Yeah, I can see that there's been an interesting increase in appley flavour. Not really much of a sweetness change. So let's add a bit more. Another 3 teaspoons. And we'll try again. Now, keep doing this yourself until you find a level that you're happy with. So again, there's the bit in the tap that hasn't changed flavour, so I'll get rid of that. That's got that flavour. Oh, that's got that flavour. Get me glasses mixed up. And that's a good job, because that is, I'm going to say that's smack on as I would like it. I don't really fancy adding any more. So yeah, I think that's about right as I would like it. So cracking, brilliant. Once you've experimented and you've got the flavour profile that you are happy with, the sweetness you are happy with, and I'm happy with that. It's nice and appley, not too appley. It's got a sweetness to it, medium I would say, not too sweet for me. But if you like your cider really sweet, if you like your cider really appley, then you can add those extra bits that were in those sachets and really ramp it up or drop it down a few notches. So, no matter though, the next stage, whether you are barreling or bottling your cider, I like to do it this way rather than a slightly different way. So here I have got 100 grams of sugar for the 23 litres of cider. So if you were putting this all into a barrel, brilliant, you could put the sugar straight into a barrel, siphon this into the barrel, stir it all around, dissolve it, put the caps on, done. Easy as that. If you're putting it into bottles, a little bit more awkward because you're going to try and put an equal amount of this sugar into every single bottle with a teaspoon. It takes a long time, a bit of a nightmare, you get sugar everywhere, you think you've tidied it up and then you end up with a sticky mess next morning. If it's in the summer, sometimes you find an ants all around the floor. Anyway, me babbling. My easiest way is to take the priming sugar, in this case I'm using brewing sugar for my priming sugar, and I've got 100 grams of it, and I'm just going to simply pop that into the cider and give it a gentle stir so that it dissolves. One thing I'll say about stirring, whether you're stirring in the flavourings or in the sugar at this stage, do it gently, don't go mad. You see, right now in here we've got lots of lovely alcohol. And there's not really much. Remember I said to you about when I'm sucking on the siphon, the bacteria in my mouth will be killed by the alcohol. However, there are some bacteria out there that like alcohol. There's not many, and all those bacteria have one thing in common. They like to turn alcohol to vinegar. If you've ever left a bottle of wine out on the side for a couple of nights and then gone back to it thinking, that'll be fine, and go, oh, and it's turned to vinegar, it's because you've got some vinegar bacteria in it and they're munching it away. So come on in, James. And you'll see, I've got my spoon right down at the bottom and I'm stirring it from the bottom. And what I'm not trying to do is I'm not trying to whip it up and get air into it. I'm just literally trying to dissolve that small amount of sugar into it. Okay. Now then, come back in, James, because you'll see there's some fizziness going on and some bubbles being created, a little bit of foam coming on the top. So that's most likely because there are still billions of yeast in this cider, and those billions of yeast have gone, more food, more sugar, yes! and they've started eating all that sugar. And that has actually started the secondary fermentation already. So I'm now going to get my bottles and I'm going to bottle this cider. So my tap here is a special tap that fits this little contraption which is called a little bottler. And down at the bottom here on the end you've got a little valve which is very, very useful, and you'll see why in a moment. So we fit that on and we turn the tap on and not really much happens. But what we do is we put the bottle in, we press up, that pushes the valve, and the bottle starts filling up from the bottom. Great for if you're doing beer, because beer tends to get really, really frothy, but cider can get frothy as well. So there we go, we get it right to the top, stop, and there's our first bottle done. Make sure that the bottles you are using are suitable for holding a carbonated liquid. Don't think about using a wine bottle or any other bottle that you can just get your hands on. They have to be suitable for holding a carbonated liquid. If you don't, you could be at major risk of the bottles exploding. And trust me, after someone who's seen a bottle explode, you don't want that happening. So make sure they are suitable for holding a carbonated liquid. Once I've done all my bottles, these are then going to go back into my warm place at 20 degrees C. I'm going to leave them in there for 24, 48 hours, a week. Hey, we'll see. That will allow that secondary fermentation, as we saw the fizz in the top of the bottle. The yeast now in this bottle will eat all that sugar that's in there, and they will turn that to carbon dioxide. And because the carbon dioxide can't escape, it will be dissolved into the liquid, and there, that will make it fizzy. So then once it's been in my warm room for about 48 hours to a week, the fermentation, secondary fermentation will have completed. Put it somewhere cool. It's quite easy at this time of year because it's winter out and it's blooming freezing at the moment. Put it somewhere cool. It will clear. It will create a small sediment down at the bottom. Once it's clear, you can pop one in the fridge, pop it open, nice long slow gentle pour so you don't disturb the sediment, and then you can enjoy a nice glass of cider. Hopefully that will be ready in about 2 to 4 weeks. Anyway, for now I'm going to carry on bottling the rest of my cider. I've already drinking this cider. It's lovely, very, very nice, very easy drinking, and for a Somerset boy that is drinking a cider that was crafted in New Zealand. Well done, guys. Well done. Cheers. Enjoy.